Commissioner, the charter jurisprudence based upon the Supreme Court's 2014 Spencer decision and the more recent 2024 Bykovitz decision is clear. Access to personal data requires prior judicial authorization, correct?
Yes, those were the findings of the court.
Okay, and looking at the Bykovitz decision, the court confirmed that subscriber data is, quote, the key to unlocking a person's identity and online activity, and based upon that, the court affirmed that even IP addresses attract a reasonable expectation of privacy and therefore cannot be obtained without a warrant, correct?
Well, that was a finding in that case. Again, the argument was this information is not specific enough, so we can ask and obtain it. And in the court really found that we can draw so much about individuals with these types of data points, and so in that case found that a warrant was required.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And to satisfy, in order to obtain a warrant or a production order in this type of context, the standard that would have to be met is reasonable belief. Is that correct?
Reasonable belief, there's some instances where under the law it will be reasonable suspicion. So I think that is where some of my recommendations are, to the effect that when we're talking about sensitive information, it should be reasonable belief. We should have a more rigorous standard to assess that.
Okay. So with that in mind, I want to ask you some questions about parts 14 and 15 of the Liberal government's Bill C2, buried within the so-called Strong Borders Act, are sweeping new powers to government agencies to demand Internet subscriber data. For example, Section 487.0121 of the Criminal Code, the proposed section, would allow police and CSIS officers to demand customer information from any company providing public services, including banks, telecoms, and social media, on a mere suspicion without judicial authorization. Have I got that right?
Right.
Okay. So in terms of understanding the implications of what that section would enable law enforcement to do, law enforcement, for example, could compel a bank without a warrant to reveal whether an individual is a client of a bank, how long they've been a client for, where they have accessed banking services, and provide the name of any person who has provided services to that individual. Is that fair?
I don't have the section in front of me, but that sounds right.
And it would provide warrantless access to subscriber data, including IP addresses.
Again,
right?
Sounds right.
That sounds right. And so it would seem to me that completely eviscerates the standards set out in Spencer and in Bykovitz, right?
Well, it modifies it. Parliament can do that. The question is it necessary and appropriate? And so when we look at this, we ask questions about why is it suspicion and not belief? Is it rigorous enough? Is there enough reporting? These types of questions.
Yeah, but it raises serious privacy implications, does it not?
It has privacy implications. You're making it easier to obtain the data.
And do you have any concerns about that?
Well, again, I'm giving in advance the testimony that I'm going to be given to the committee when called on that specific bill. But certainly, what we've seen so far is we would have preference in it being reasonable belief as opposed to reasonable suspicion in some of those aspects because of the sensitivity of information. And so there are areas where the standard, in my view, should be higher.
And the standard would be higher, in your view, in this context?
Standard of reasonable belief as opposed to reasonable suspicion.
Well, and what about the ability for law enforcement to access sensitive personal information? I think you would concede the information that we're talking about here is sensitive personal information. You'd agree with that?
In many cases, it will be. In some cases, it may not be. But my point is, if we're talking about that sensitive information, the threshold should be higher. There's appropriate places for suspicion, but reasonable belief when we're talking about sensitive information is critical.